Good day, everyone. We are Group 2 and we are here to present our case study on Mark Reyes, the medical representative. As a preview, yours truly will discuss the problem, point of view, and assumptions. For the analysis, the frameworks used are enumerated with their respective presenters. SWOT by Jamie, Issue Contingent Model by Maken, Mark Kula Center Framework by yours truly, and Stanford Chain by Yuki. The alternatives will be evaluated by Julian, and the presentation will end with the recommendations by Yuki. Given the case, the central problem revolves around the question: how should Mark Reyes respond to the request of Dr. Lorenzo? With the sub-questions, if he agreed with Dr. Lorenzo, how is it possible that he could live on by his job? Given the situation in the pharmaceutical sales industry, why is this job, medical representative, still the right one for him? The case is to be viewed from the perspective of Mark Reyes, a newly hired medical representative. In dealing with this case, the following assumptions are drawn. First, Mark Reyes is a fresh business graduate, consistent honor student, strong Catholic devotee, and family-oriented person. Aside from this, he does not give in to pressure and always follows the rules. Second, the case happened in the 2000s after DOH regulations developments. Mark Reyes works in a company that regards itself as a merit-based organization that has stringent rules, wherein selling of drug samples is illegal and results in termination. As the boss mentioned, shady deals commonly occur in the pharmaceutical sales industry, leaving Mark with a tough decision to make.
Moving on to the analysis. So using SWOT, Mark's situation shows how making the decision has both its benefits and risks. His background and characteristics as a person, being excellent, level-headed, and obedient, are Mark's strengths as an ideal and trustworthy employee, but his newness to this competitive job is his weakness. Also, the demand in the situation is misaligned with Mark's values and the regulations of the industry, and being in the position for only 2 weeks means he still does not know the tricks of the trade. Agreeing with the doctor's request is possible, and it can give Mark opportunities such as a good cut, and the tricks of the trade itself are chances to do the deal legitimately. However, there are many risks and threats that can affect his reputation, job, and relationships in the position.
A company that prides itself on integrity and stringent rules. How will Mark Reyes decide? Moving on to our next analysis, we have the issue contingent model of ethical decision making. We have to take note that accepting Dr. Lorenzo's offer partially or completely would lead to Mark Reyes' termination because these activities have been frowned upon by the very people who work in the same industry, which would mean a high degree of social consensus, making it indubitably a wrongful act. The probability of effect, therefore, to his career, if ever the act was discovered, would be high. The consequences of the action would be immediate and would affect Mark Reyes and possibly the whole company. Reyes might be fired outright, and the company's permit to operate might be revoked as well. Moreover, the effect of Mark Reyes' engagement in the wrongful act with the doctor would be more tremendous for those with whom he is affiliated or those within his proximity. This would affect his family greatly, who has relied on him as the head of the family since the death of his father 15 years ago. Therefore, if Reyes were to be reprimanded, his family would be the most affected ones. However, this is not to say that this never happens. In fact, even his district supervisor advises that Mark that these shady deals are common by the medical representatives for their personal interests. Overall, the ethical issue revolves around accepting the offer of Dr. Lorenzo, who would sell boxes of drug samples from which Reyes would gain a cut. Logically, he should not agree with this, as the whole act is immoral and unethical. However, in doing so, this will create a feud between him and the doctors.
Mark Kula Center framework is premised on 5 approaches that are values-based as one of the common business frameworks in making decisions. First, utilitarian perspective entails that accepting the deal or deals satisfies the good of a number of people, his family who relies on him for sustenance, and his own. Good relations to not let a competitor's medical representative take over. Second, lens of rights implies that the act would harm human dignity and moral rights as he would be the doctor's means to an end, since he could sell the drug samples to patients, maybe for personal benefits, harming the common good. Third, since his interest would prevail over the welfare of those who would avail the drugs in compliance with regulations. Fourth, fairness approach posits that giving special treatment to the doctor is unfair because it is not the right process. Mark suffering from the consequence of rejecting the request would be unfair since many engaged in shady deals with little to no harm. Fifth, virtue approach shows that wrongfully giving the drugs to a doctor compromises his firm principles and Catholic beliefs.
This decision analysis chain that we got from Stanford University is a framework that sets solutions that one could take to deal with problems, given the useful information. The case shows that Mark is forced to decide if he would partly agree, completely agree, or fully disagree with the offer that is given to him, or just leave the issue to the authorities. There are two main factors that are considered, external and internal. Under the external factors, his career is at serious risk upon violating the rules, for he would be penalized if he is caught accepting and following the doctor's offer. On the other hand, under internal factors, it has been stated that Mark is an obedient person, and he does not give in to pressure that easily. It is also important to note that consequences upon accepting the offer are a compromise to his Christian values, and could lead to possible future blackmails from the doctor and possible job termination. This framework also tells us that Mark is with his second sound reasoning, mainly because it is also stated from the case that he already consulted first with his boss and subsequently reflected thoroughly right after. Lastly, this analysis chain predicts that the possibility of his commitment to fully follow through with the doctor's offer is less likely, knowing all of the information that has just been stated.
Considering the assumptions and analysis we made, we came up with 4 alternatives, each of which has its own pros and cons. The first one is for Mark to agree to all of the requests of the doctor. The advantages to this would be that Mark has a higher chance of getting the sale, and he could utilize the cut he could get from the shady deal for important personal expenses. The downside is that the doctor could use this against Mark a number of times so that he can get what he wants, which is a form of blackmail. Additionally, given Mark's Christian nature, he might not be able to forgive himself for this, and he might regret this for a very long time. Ultimately, if he got caught, he could lose his job, his reputation, and his license. The next alternative, which is related to the previous, is to agree to some requests of the doctor, particularly the one that can be construed legal. This alternative would benefit him, as Mark has a relatively higher chance of getting the sale in this alternative as compared to not agreeing at all. And because the requests that he will be agreeing to can still be construed as legal, given Mark takes the measures that his boss taught him, it has lesser consequences compared to the first one. Unfortunately, this alternative is sort of a play-safe alternative, and this gives him a greater possibility that he loses the deal, especially if his competitor was able to deliver everything. It would be harder for him to say no to the doctor soon because he already dropped a few of the requests this time. The third one would be leaving the issue to the authorities. In this alternative, Mark can set an example to other medical representatives, and he can show them what should be done in order to avoid corrupt doctors. There's also a possibility that Mark can receive a merit award or promotion, for it has been stated that the pharmaceutical company that Mark Reyes is in regards itself as a merit-based organization. However, as much as this alternative can benefit Mark, it could also cause him to have a strained relationship with some doctors. Furthermore, this implies that Mark cannot decide for himself and that he cannot handle tough situations. The last alternative is for Mark to reject all of the requests of the doctor. In this alternative, the possibility of losing his job and ruining his reputation is very low. Mark will also get to stay true to his beliefs, and he will be able to do what is morally and legally right in his views. The consequences of this alternative, though, is that the doctor is not likely to recommend a drug from Mark's company, which somehow affects an aspect of his work since he has a duty to build good relations with doctors. Losing the doctor could turn into a big consequence for their company since they are in a competitive industry.
Lastly, for our recommendations as to what Mark Reyes shall do, our group answered one main question and the two sub-questions. For the main question asking how Mark Reyes should respond to the request of Dr. Lorenzo, we suggest for Mark to agree to one request of the doctor, namely the sponsoring of the Sony PlayStation. Since providing drug samples has too many risks and compromises his principles too much. While it is true that the values-based frameworks show how morally abhorrent it is for Mark to follow the doctor's request, it is not strategic for a newbie in the job with no to limited knowledge of workplace politics like Mark to totally turn down the doctor's request because an aspect of his work is to maintain good relations with the doctors. And the industry he is in is very competitive, so he needs to satisfy a low-risk request of the doctor. Agreeing to all requests has too many risks and is far outside his principles. Firm refusal and leaving the issue to authorities would strain his relationship with the doctors, whom he has a deal to secure with, leaving him with no results to reap in his job, considering that customers like Dr. Lorenzo, whom he has to please for him to recommend their drugs to patients, are always the kings of the business. This is to say that it is wise for Mark to capitalize on the tricks of the trade. Specifically, the request for hard goods to be recorded is a non-medical item. That is the game console, as it is a common practice in the industry which many have already engaged in and got little to no harm. It is to be acknowledged that it is only a partial fulfillment of the request of the doctor, but it is already a win-win situation since the doctor got what he wants, and that is the gift that has to be given to his youngest son urgently since soon is his birthday, thus time is of the essence. Mark reaped a lot of benefits such as not sacrificing his job, reputation, and relations with the doctor. It is less likely for the doctor to settle for a competitor's medical representative since Mark attempted to satisfy one of his pertinent wants. Moving on to answer the two sub-questions, our group believes that Mark would still live with himself upon attempting to please the doctor by providing only the game console, since this action is tolerable on his end based on his values. We maintain as well that it is still the right job for him. In their industry full of shady deals, it is inevitable for Mark to encounter more shady offers that would challenge his firm principles. As a consistent honor student and a business graduate from Ateneo, Mark can utilize his background to deal with prospective blackmails and to negotiate terms with the doctors. With more experience in the long run, it would be easier for him to rigidly say yes or no to doctors through effective decision making, and he can develop more strategies to handle such offers in a way that does not affect his principles. And that concludes our presentation for the Mark Reyes case. Once again, we are Group 2 from BA 101 WFY. Have a great day ahead and thank you for listening.